marketing should not be looked at as creative arts. It's a science, very much driven and backed by data today.
Yeah, a lot of people, particularly marketers, think that they have to be creative to think of interesting campaigns. But at the end of the day, you have to report data. That's why you need to be data-driven.
A lot of marketers are trying to build CEOs, their presence, but at the same time, I guess the CEOs also need to input a lot of voice. Otherwise, it doesn't feel as personal.
I hope my CEO is also listening to this. We are trying to build their brand. So
AI is going to transform every single function. Social media or influencer marketing isn't going to stay behind. One use case, AI influencers. Today on social media, there are two kinds of people we have. One is an influencer, and then there are content creators. Brand possibly needs both at the same time. Now, somebody who can join the two together would probably actually end up winning the race a lot more.
I saw a very interesting post on LinkedIn. Somebody was advocating for doing B2B influencer marketing on TikTok as well. Do you have any thought?
I think there are certain industries where it definitely works. The only challenge that I see is, are they in the mindset to convert? If you're looking for conversions, probably a question mark. But if you're looking for brand awareness and eyeballs, 100%.
Hello everyone, this is Shubham Tiwari, Head of Content Marketing and Socials at Phyllo. Welcome to the second season of Impulse, Google's top-rated podcast on influencer marketing. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or if you'd like to watch this episode, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have close to 70,000 subscribers now. We would love to have you on board as well. Today, we are pleased to have with us Archana, a global marketing leader with over 18 years of experience in driving digital and social media strategies across industries. She has collaborated with top brands like Unilever, Kérastase Paris. Is that the right pronunciation? Kérastase. It's always something with French words. So, of course, Archana is a very respected name in both B2B and B2C marketing. Today, we are going to discuss or pick her brains on influencer marketing. Let's get her insights on the future of branding as well as data. So, Archana, welcome to the Impulse.
Thank you, Shubham, for having me. It's a pleasure. I think I've watched a couple of episodes of the podcast as well, and there's so much, insights there. So I'm just humbled to be here sharing mine as well.
Let's start on a fun note. What's the one marketing tool you can't live without?
Okay, so I think lately, and it's a tool that I've literally added into my kitty in last 2 months, is Notion. I think I just love this tool because it's where I live and breathe. Like all my planning, all my ideas, everything sits within that tool today. So that's one tool that I look at every day.
A lot of people complain about, how you just get lost in, building stuff on Notion instead of actually working on it. But yeah, it divides opinion, I know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is because you can just build, as you said, anything and everything. I always keep trying and then I'm like, why am I doing that? I get that. But yeah, it's still a great place to capture ideas for a marketer. Before that, I was doing screenshots. I still have you don't know how many numbers of screenshots on my desktop. So yeah, that's where the death of ideas happen, I guess.
That's a good quote, actually. I mean, what's the most unexpected place you have found inspiration for a campaign?
Well, actually, I would say it's when life is happening, right? So when I'm in tube, especially for me, the time to think is when I'm traveling and I'm in an airport lounge or just sitting in airport waiting for my flight. So that's where the best ideas and the creativity happens for me. And maybe when I'm swimming as well. So it's more about the time that I have alone for thinking. That really helps.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You can't force your way through ideas. They just come. You have to sit still. There's this idea ideas have us. We don't have ideas. So I think that's essentially what you're talking about. And if you had to describe your marketing style in one word, what would it be?
Try again until you succeed.
Well, we all need runways. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and the reason is what I've learned over the years is I've seen people who are perfectionists. They just keep, and I have been a perfectionist in some places. I feel like, I want to have this at least before I go to the next stage. And I feel like perfection just kills the progress. And unless in marketing, you're doing something which is life-threatening or you're dealing with a healthcare campaign where, people's lives are in jeopardy, I think there's nothing that can stop you from getting the campaign out and then iterating on it. So that's why I said, try again until you succeed.
Wonderful. And since I'm a huge movie buff, I make it a point to include this next question every time I speak with guests. What's one movie that's influenced your career the most?
Okay, so I am a big chick flick fan, let's say like that. So you're not going to get a very intelligent answer out of me for that one. My favorite would be Legally Blonde. And the reason being is, the way she was coming from a very different background to then pursue law, but she didn't lose her personality. So it was basically about, don't losing yourself. You lose yourself, whichever environment you're working in, have that character, and then try to, adapt and grow.
That's a nice film. I guess Reese Witherspoon is in the film, right? Yeah.
Yes.
See, I'm a huge movie buff. I'm just showing off. So yeah, coming to your, core tasks that you're known for, you have led marketing teams across different industries. How has the rise of social media and influencer marketing in particular reshaped your marketing practices across these industries?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And to be honest, like if you see, I did my research, my MBA research on influencer marketing. So when I talk to somebody about influencer marketing, I just say like influencer marketing has always existed. We've had influencers in our lives always. Like you could think of Mahatma Gandhi as an influencer. You can also think of Amitabh Bachchan as an influencer, right? But what has happened is when you look at social media, everybody who can build a community can share an opinion and can influence essentially. And today on social media, there are two kind of audiences or people that we have. One is an influencer who can actually truly influence, and then there are content creators, people who are actually good at creating content. And a brand possibly needs both at the same time. So it's about understanding how you can go and have that balance of both an influencer and a content creator together. Now, somebody who can join the two together would probably actually end up winning the race a lot more.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. You're differentiating between a content creator and an influencer. Can you give us an example of if you can think of some creators or content creators and influencers at the top of your head?
Okay, sure. So I think content creators are essentially people who are expert in creating content. And
Okay.
I will talk about maybe like Indian economy a little more here.
Sure.
So I follow Masoom Meenawala quite a lot. And I think she's probably, she started as a content creator, but now she's more of an influencer. Whereas
Okay.
then you have Larissa, who I look at still as more of a content creator because her content has a very different edge. It's always on the top of its curve. Those are the two differentiating factors for me. People who are sharing more authentic lifestyle content, but are still able to garner a lot more following and can engage with the audience are those are the influencers in that category. People who are specifically going out and creating content to serve a particular need and drive a particular message are where you have content creators. So yeah.
Right. So you're saying that a brand ideally should be working with both in different phases of, let's say, a campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
very, very good point. Yeah. You've worked across B2B and B2C both sectors.
Yes.
What are the differentiating factors while designing influencer marketing strategies for each?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting divide, which is pretty visible as well so for somebody who is in this space. So I think B2C essentially is a lot more driven by influencer marketing today. I think when you look at B2C campaigns with brands, bigger chunk of budget is allocated to influencer marketing because they have the data to prove the ROI back, and there's more investment happening in that sector. Also because there are more influencers and there's just more awareness in that space of about the influencers. When you look at B2B, quite a different variation that you have to look at. Like B2B obviously is much more ROI driven. So if you can't prove the data, brands don't invest back into B2B, which is as simple. But also there's a challenge on how to find influencers in that space. But at the same time, sometimes influencers are not able to work with brands. So for B2B, one of the other levers that people look at, which is employee advocacy. So just like in B2C, you have UGC, you look at employee advocacy more so in B2B. So that's a bigger lever within B2B space that brands look at because if you go outside, you have to also look at, people who can actually talk about your brand versus legalities, etc.
Right. What do you think of LinkedIn's potential for B2B influencer marketing? Do you think enough people are doing it? More people should do it? But what's your view?
I think a lot of people are doing it. I was hesitant about I used to train people on LinkedIn, but I was still not doing it myself, let's say like that. And then I started doing it and I see like there's a significant impact. People want to do it, whether they have the time to do it or not is a different thing. So where in social media and B2C, people have made this a full-time role, right? Like we have full-time influencers, full-time content creators, because there's enough economy there. I think in LinkedIn, I still don't see that. I think what I see on LinkedIn is either people are doing it because it helps them drive their employee goals. So whatever their roles are. So a lot of sales and business development folks are there as well. Then you also have a lot of CEOs who are also like putting out thought leadership content. But what you don't see is 100% influencers, like that sheer volume of influencers on LinkedIn today.
Right. So you're saying these LinkedIn influencers are not, untethered. They are attached to a role, and they are, either building their own brand or trying to, get more sales for their products and all. It's a very interesting point, actually. I mean, an out and out influencer on LinkedIn, would that work? I mean, do you think, let's say an influencer, TikTok influencer who has 1 million, followers, and they sign up on LinkedIn, would that work for them, or a LinkedIn influencer need to be, tethered to a company or bigger role?
I have certain examples. I wouldn't take the names right now, but yes, I have few really top of the notch TikTok influencers who have them come on LinkedIn, but their content is for LinkedIn, right? Like you have to understand. So, for example, somebody who might be doing comedic sketches
Right.
on employee life, or somebody who's talking about finance, investing. Those influencers can 100% migrate their content onto LinkedIn and can charge a really hefty sum to drive their business.
Right. And you also mentioned something which is a very big challenge to find the right influencers. So, with your experience over the years, how is the intersection of data and social media playing a role in shaping the influencer marketing's future? Particularly, let's say, in the context of finding, let's say, a creator or influencer.
Yeah, I think data plays a big part. Like when brands look at what influencers to work with, how to compensate, they're looking at your data all the time, right? Like they're looking at your followers, your demographics, the audience demographics, the engagement, and those are the metrics that brands look at to then understand whether a certain influencer will actually work for them or not. After a campaign is done, again, how the content performed is another set of data that is looked at. So I think influencer marketing is very much data driven. I know it starts as a brand building exercise, but a lot of brands are looking at the sales that can be driven, or what is the brand trust we are able to form in that community. So yeah, there are a lot of levers that are driving this. And I think the data that we can get from platforms is increasing day by day. So when I started doing Instagram, I guess that much of data was not even available, right? You could not go and see individual post engagement beyond likes and views. So
Correct.
yeah, it's there's a lot more data that's available now.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of data, I saw a very interesting post today on LinkedIn. Somebody was advocating, for doing B2B influencer marketing on TikTok as well. They said, you get, volume is much bigger on TikTok, but of course, the engagement is more on LinkedIn. So a lot of interesting stuff is coming up. And that's the beauty of influencer marketing. You can go and try a lot of stuff. As you said, try and more. That's the thing. But do you have any thoughts or views on, B2B marketing on TikTok, influencer marketing?
Yeah, I think B2B marketing on social media platforms other than LinkedIn, let's say, right? Like even Instagram for that matter, or TikTok. I think there are certain industries where it definitely works. You just need to understand if your audience is actually on Instagram or not, or on TikTok or not. The only challenge that I see though is are they in the mindset to convert? So if you're looking for conversions, probably a question mark. But if you're looking for brand awareness and eyeballs, 100%. So, for example, I navigate a lot more on Instagram, and I've been served a lot of marketing led events and marketing led like tools that I would use in my day to day job. They have like served ads to me, which makes 100% sense. Now I remember them. Doesn't mean that I would go and download their PDF or go and register for their event at the same time.
That's a very good distinction. With influencer marketing evolving rapidly, how do you see the use of AI and data playing, let's say, a transformative role on the campaign level? How do you see the use of AI there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been talking about AI a lot, and I can tell you, like, AI is going to transform every single function that we have. Social media or influencer marketing isn't going to stay behind. I think with AI coming in with social media, brands are trying to look at how to fast track a lot of things, right? Whether that's the selection process, which was data driven, but still manual, right? So using AI to help select influencers, even find those connections which you were missing out earlier. I've seen a use case where brand actually scrolls through the comments through using, there are tools out there essentially,
Yep.
tools which can actually scroll through the comments of influencers to see where the buying intent is more versus some influencers who don't have buying intent. So that's one use case. Obviously, there's also AI influencers. We talk a lot about them. I think there are I don't think AI influencer will replace everything, but there are stages out there of content, probably more on awareness where they can help. So when I look at the content lever, I see it at from one end to the right one end. And what I mean by that is at this start of the end, when they're starting the journey, they're okay to learn about a brand from an AI influencer. By the time I get to my decision making point, that's where I still want that human connect. So brands can have a look at this sphere of content and say, where do I actually interject AI for that engagement? Also, AI is helping content creators to create a higher level of content. I've been using AI in my editing a lot more than I would have before. The content production for me has increased significantly. I'm
Right.
putting in less time. I have more time to enjoy life.
Yeah, I'm glad that you spoke about your process because your digital presence is very impressive, both through your personal blog as well as Instagram. So, how important do you think personal branding is to aid your personal growth? Because I see on LinkedIn, a lot of marketers want to build their own brands. They want to, build the brands of their CEOs even. They're juggling a lot of, branding activities. So, how did you manage to do it? First of all, please tell us.
I think I did allude that I was training. So in my previous roles, a couple of years back, I was already training a lot of people on LinkedIn. I have approximately trained by today more than 300 people on LinkedIn. Essentially, I've also been a trainer with my UBS training exec MBAs on how to build brands. So obviously, I do believe in this. But at the same time, I feel like the reason one should do is should be clear. Like, what's your purpose of doing this? Because that purpose really helps you guide on what you would be doing afterwards. Now, what I've also seen is that a lot of people don't do it online; they do it offline. So some people are really good at networking, for
Okay.
example, or
Mhm.
just because of the how their job and how their life is structured, they have more opportunities to do that. So there are two ways of doing it, which is online and offline. It all depends on what might work for you and what your objective is driving. What are you trying to drive out of it? Now, a lot of CEOs or marketers are trying to help build CEOs their presence, but at the same time, I guess the CEOs also need to input a lot of voice because otherwise it doesn't feel as personal. So whenever I work with execs on how to build their brand, I'm always looking at, can we have that personal insight? Can we talk about like what's more important for you? Because otherwise the content will not really reflect how you are when somebody is going to meet you in person.
Correct. I mean, that's very interesting. I never thought that people are building brands offline as well. I mean, of course, even before social media, we knew some people because of their brands, but still a thing. I mean, I think there is a hindrance to go online and put your, thoughts out there, particularly for CEOs and C-suite level, leaders in companies. I hope my CEO is also listening to this. We are trying to build their brand. So that's the thing. Speaking more of data, social data is becoming critical for personalized marketing. How have you seen it make a difference in the campaigns you have led? And how do you see platforms like Phyllo, who provide, data APIs, created data APIs, shaping the future of data-driven influencer marketing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, data is critical, right? Like, I feel like we are marketers, but we kind of have become data scientists at the same time. Like, Martech is a big part of what
Yeah.
marketing today is. And having tools to bring that data and talk to each other, because what I see is a lot of fragmented data across, right? Like when I'm looking at campaigns, I have a part of my data which is sitting in another tool, then a part of data which I'm fetching from another tool, and then bringing them together. So any kind of tool which can actually help bring the data together is very important. Also because all these platforms are made on different tools or backends, means they don't talk to each other often. So an API call or a tool which can help you drive that build together, build connections like Phyllo is pretty critical. I think marketers today have, if they're not using it, they just have to use data right from the decision making. I think is pretty critical to then also being able to go back and say, were we able to showcase the success that we actually started with the goal? So whenever I'm working out, I say like, what is the goal of this campaign? Let's just document that. Let's just make sure that we know right at the start what are we driving, so that when we end, we can actually go back and say, did we actually drive that or not?
Right. So you, in a sense, you work backwards. You reverse engineer from the goals that you want to achieve, and then
Yeah.
you dive into the tools that you need, the Martech, as you mentioned, and everything. Right. And in terms of content creation and influencer marketing, where do you see the biggest growth opportunities over the next 5 years, particularly for tech as well as lifestyle brands?
I think, look, I wouldn't even say like influencer marketing is starting. I did my research in 2018, 2019. At that time, I would say influencer marketing was starting. I mean, I interviewed brands like Jag on their influencer marketing strategy. Sorry, Jag as in like Jaguar Land Rover, just to expand. And at that time, they were like dabbling into it. Now, all these brands, if you go back, they have a set budget in influencer marketing. They know the influencers. They have long-term relationships with influencers, right? The influencers that they tap on and off for all their campaigns. I am part of like few brands as well where I have long-term relationships. So I feel like influencer marketing has already seen its day in the sunshine. It's one of the levers. What next I would see is UGC.
Okay.
And for B2B, probably employee advocacy. It's still very much limited tap. I wouldn't say like it's 100% tap, even though there are multiple tools out there. So UGC is for B2C a biggest driver. How they drive it is probably going to be based on the brand experience and the customer experience that they're able to drive. So turning it back to saying that CX, be it not just about how you are talking through a customer support exec, but also how you are interacting with your customer throughout their life cycle. How your brand looks and feels to them is going to build that trust for them to actually put a UGC content out for them, right? Like I would happily talk about a brand, even though I'm an influencer without getting paid, if I love that brand. And that's the emotional connect that brands now need to drive in the next 5 years.
Right. And you mentioned something really interesting, the long-term relationships with the creators.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how do you maintain long-term relationships with creators?
Yeah, I think I can maybe elaborate on it from like both the perspectives. So when I was doing my research and what I've seen with brands today is that long-term relationships help both ways, right? Like when you're with a brand for a long term, you're there because you love and you enjoy working with that brand at both perspective. Like you like their team, but you also like their product. And it's a product that you believe in. I always work with brands that I would actually use in my life any which ways, right? Like that's one point that I always made is I would not promote a product which doesn't fit in my lifestyle. So at that point, the brand is actually built into your campaigns automatically. So it becomes more of a retainer with the brand. Obviously, there are some campaigns that you can still tap into, but you have an ongoing relationship with the brand. And I think when you have that, it creates a lot of organic coverage for the brand, but also a regular income flow for the influencer. So it works both ways. And I think that's where the beautiful connect happens, where you see authentic content being generated, because then I can start to talk about whenever I'm using that product, how it's changing my, usage. So one of the brands that I work regularly with is L'Occitane, for example. I've been with them for like more than 4 years now, 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So, and for me, it's not about campaigns anymore. I just love the brand. It's integrated in my life and I really enjoy that.
Wonderful. Have you created any UGC content yourself?
Yes, I said like if I love a brand, I don't have to be paid to create content for them. So yeah, I do create a lot of UGC content because for me also I'm trying to help my community, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's about like sharing what is working for me. So I do share like a lot of advice and I would talk about from marketing perspective, the UGC that you might see is the tools that I'm using. So, what are the tools that marketers or social media managers should be using is one of the UGC content that I've created. On the lifestyle side, it could be about hotel reviews that I've really enjoyed staying at.
Right. Yeah, I mean, UGC is a phenomena for me. I mean, I still find it very fascinating that people will go out of their way to create content for you. And a lot of brands are still not tapping into it. So it's a very, I think, as you mentioned, this is the next phase of influencer marketing. Can we say that? Next phase of influencer marketing or marketing?
No, it is. It is the next phase of It will probably be both ways, marketing, because it does drive as well to a lot of extent and brand trust. But it will something that will get tapped in influencer marketing a lot more because this UGC content will start to sit on social media platforms for the brands. That's where it is.
Right. Correct. What advice would you give to marketers just starting out in the digital marketing space? What skills or area of expertise should they focus on? One I can think top of my head is the relationship building with creators, right? And I mean, is that something you?
Yeah, I mean, relationships is something that I learned a little late in my life. Let's say like that. So I always say like, having a good network is very important wherever you are, in whichever field you are in actually. But if I were to just focus on marketers and influencer marketing, I would say understanding what are the new tools that are coming out in AI. It's pretty important because there's so much development happening in this space. I feel like I get outdated every 1 week. and there's another 50 tools that I have to like look at to understand what's happening. So understanding that, and then also be more data driven, just understanding like where would you use data to make those decisions and drive outcomes is pretty critical, because marketing is no longer like, marketing should not be looked at as creative arts. It's a science, very much driven and backed by data today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, particularly marketers, think that they have to be creative to think of, interesting campaigns. But at the end of the day, you have to report data. That's why you need to be, data driven. Couple of, rituals we make our guests go through at the end of the interviews. You have to give us a book recommendation. I see a lot of books right behind you. What's your all-time favorite book? Or you can give us what you're reading right now.
Okay, I'll give you two then. So my all-time favorite is actually Culture Map. It's by an author called Erin Meyer. I think amazing one if you are starting out in a global organization or a global field where you're going to work with people from different cultures. I have read it twice, and every time I read it, I find something new, because I'm reading it at different stages of life. So I'm looking at the content that she's written at a different lens as well.
What is it called?
Culture Map. I think I've shared about it on my LinkedIn maybe twice or thrice already. Nice. So, and my version of the book is quite torn by now. So that tells you like I've read it. The second one that I really enjoyed reading recently is Atomic Habits. I guess pretty known. I would take it with like, there are some things that definitely motivates you to like just be more clear and setting up goals, doing some best practices. I don't think I'll follow that book 100%, but there are definitely some nuggets to take out.
Wonderful. And the second ritual is, would you like to nominate anyone for our show?
Yeah, sure. I think you should definitely invite an influencer. Maybe like the one I mentioned was Masoom. So maybe try getting her onto the show and having her insights from how creators today are creating content. She's also driving a brand, so you'll learn a lot more about that too.
Wonderful. Archana Dhankar, thank you so much for coming to this show, and we wish you the best. May you continue to, educate others on how to build their brands. You're, expanding this whole area of influencer marketing. So we are with you, and thank you so much for coming to the show again.
Thank you so much, Shubham, for having me. I think this was a very fun experience. I loved all your rapid fire right at the start, and your questions at the end as well. Like, they were away from data. So that was more fun. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to getting this live.
Absolutely. And if you got any interesting insights out of this interview, please let us know. You can comment in this, comment section of this video. You can follow Archana on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or, any other place of your liking. And do check out Phyllo, and we're doing a lot of crazy stuff. So see you in the next episode.
Impulse, the influencer marketing podcast, is brought to you by Phyllo. Phyllo is the easiest way to get access to authenticated creator data from hundreds of different platforms. To know more about Phyllo, visit getphyllo.com. That's getphyllo.com. Also, make sure to search for Influencer Marketing Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast listening platforms. And don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Phyllo, thank you so much for listening.